Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful tasting of the Virtual Tasting Society. I am Vadim Perlovsky, and today we are excited to welcome another amazing American single malt. American single malts are on the map. We've been talking about them. We've tasted quite a few distilleries. This one is near and dear to my heart. I got a chance to visit during COVID and fell in love with their liquid, and the people there are amazing. And we've been trying to get them in for a tasting, but they're always so busy. They're always so slammed. We're finally able to do it, so I'm super excited to share this with you. I hope you love the liquid and the people as much as I do. Joining us is Jason Levinson. He was one of the staff at the distillery for a few years, and now you do sales for the market, or what is your position?
Yeah, so I am the Colorado whiskey educator for Proximal Spirits, which Stranahan's is my baby, but that also includes Tin Cup, Bushmills, Pendleton, Sexton, and a couple other brands.
Very cool. So we're excited today. We have 6 fantastic expressions. We have some core releases, but then also thank you so much. We're able to get some distillery exclusive, hard to find stuff, which we love to try. So I'm super stoked for that 10-year. Considering I think you guys have only been around for 10 years, so the fact that we're trying it 10 years is pretty amazing.
Yeah, we've been going a little longer than that. Do we have the full 2 hours?
We have as much time as you want. We don't have a hard end time, so we can get nerdy and have fun.
Sweet. So before we get and guys, I like a very interactive tasting. I've done a lot of them. The virtual ones are a little they can be really dull if you're just listening to me talk forever. So I will be asking questions. Feel free to come off of mute and ask questions, talk with me. No one wants to hear me talk for 2 hours straight. So okay, so before we get into tasting, I'll just give you guys kind of a quick overview of some of the history of Stranahan's, and we'll talk a little bit about American single malt, and then we'll jump into the liquid. So the story actually starts with a guy named Jess Graber. Jess Graber is quite the character. He's from this small town up in the mountains called Woody Creek, Colorado. If you guys have been there, it's quite the town. If you ever get the chance to go there, I recommend it. It's really close to Aspen. So he is up there, and this was in like the 70s-ish, right? So he was a volunteer firefighter as well as a moonshiner. And he, in the 70s, he actually ended up getting this still from Larry, the Missouri River Rat. He met this guy in a bar and became friends, and Larry ended up giving him his first like moonshine still, right? Like homemade, the ones that you're putting paste on to seal. We're talking like old school moonshine distilling. And Larry taught him kind of how to run it and what to do, and he just started moonshining in his spare time. So time passes, he's fighting fires, making moonshine, and one night he actually goes out to a call that he got for a barn fire at a neighboring ranch called Flying Dog Ranch. He gets there, he looks up on the hill, and he sees this barn burning down to the ground on fire. There's flames everywhere, and he's watching this from a distance, right? And he sees through the flames this shadow of this man frantically throwing barrels out of this fire, right? This guy's just throwing these things down the hill. And he's sitting there watching this, thinking to himself, this is weird. This is very strange. I think I'm going to help him save the barrels, because obviously this barn, not important, right? So he runs in, helps him save the majority of those barrels, but the barn burns to the ground. Now, the owner of the barn and the barrels, who is George Stranahan, gave Jess a barrel as a thank you. That barrel was full of beer. So the guy gave him 53 gallons of beer as a thank you, which is some small town kind of stuff, right? So he goes home, though. He's a moonshiner, so he knows what to do with that beer. He takes it, goes home, moonshines it, goes back to George and says, George, this moonshine I just made of your beer is fantastic. We should really start a whiskey company together. He'd been thinking about doing this. People were asking him more and more for his moonshine. So he was already kind of thinking about it. And then he got this beer and ran to George. And George was like, no, I'm good. I got enough going on. Thanks for helping me out. But no, thank you. A couple of things to know about George. He was actually quite the entrepreneur. He had a lot of things going on. His family patented some of the first spark plugs out there, supposedly, allegedly. So he was doing okay. Also, he owned the Woody Creek Tavern, where George, uh, Jess, and also a guy named Hunter S. Thompson and another artist and a bunch of people all hung out at this Woody Creek Tavern. But he also owned a brewery called Flying Dog Brewery. Anyone heard of Flying Dog Brewery before? Give me a little, yeah, nods, nice, yeah. So Flying Dog used to be local. It used to be downtown by Coors Stadium, and that was George's place, right? So he had a lot of stuff going on. So his response to that was, "No thanks, I'm good. I have too much going on already." But again, they live in a small town, Woody Creek, Colorado, and so they may have been drinking at the tavern a little bit more than other nights one night. And Jess decides to try again with George. It says, "George, come on, we have to do this. But what if we took your last name, slapped it on the bottle, and called it Stranahan's?" Deal. Okay, sounds good. Let's do it. So they go into business together. That was in 2004. So in 2004, that also made it the first legal whiskey distillery in Colorado since Prohibition, which is pretty cool. So they get going, and in 2004, Flying Dog, like I said, was by Coors Field, and so Flying Dog beer was already pretty awesome. They found out that when you distill Flying Dog, it's pretty dang good, and that was that first, that barrel of beer that he got was just old Flying Dog. So what they ended up doing, they're just basically Flying Dog was making the wash that they were then pumping next door, where they ended up putting Jess, and Jess was distilling it in the building next door and making Stranahan's. So that's the start of the company. Our first bottle comes out in 2006. They let the first one age for 2 years. They weren't sourcing any liquid. They weren't doing anything. They were just waiting and working. One of the beauties of Stranahan's, we've never sourced any liquid into that building for Stranahan's, which is pretty great. Everything's going good until about 2009. 2009 rolls around, and Flying Dog moves to Maryland, where they still are today. This leaves Jess in a bit of a bind because now he has no one brewing for him, no equipment, and the building he's in is falling apart. So he starts looking for a place, and he finds the place we're in now, over on Santa Fe and Alameda, Kalamazoo, right around that area. That was owned by a brewery called Heavenly Days Brewery. Heavenly Days, I don't expect anyone to know who they were. They were around for about 6 months. It was just a local brewery. They went out of business pretty quickly for two reasons. One, it was 2009, right? It was not a good time for anyone starting a business. But also, their tour went like this. They said, "Here is your pitcher. Have some fun," which is a terrible tour. Great tour, but not a financially good tour. So they went out of business. It worked out for Jess because they left behind some equipment. They left behind actually a mash tun, the boil kettle, and 3 fermenters that are still at the distillery today and still in use. And they left behind, of course, the building. And the building, if you've been there, it's quite large. It used to have a restaurant way back in the day. That's why I asked that earlier, because if people are always like, "Oh, I think it's been a couple years since I've been there," and they're like, "I think there was a restaurant there last time I was there." I was like, "Yeah, that was like 2009, 10." So anyway, they moved there in 2009. They get going, and we've been there ever since. And now we own the entire city block, and it's a pretty awesome place. So that's kind of a quick overview on history. Anyone have any questions on that? Anything at all? We good? Cool. All right, let's talk really quick about American single malt. So everything we do is American single malt, and I talk about this all the time, and I still get people that are like, "Oh, let me try your bourbon." I explain why we're single malt and American single malt, and they then say, "Man, that's awesome! Can't wait to try your bourbon." Like, okay, cool. So American single malt. Let's break that down really quick. And as you guys, I'm sure you guys are pretty nerdy on this stuff as well. You probably have talked about this in past tastings. The American single malt as a category is a little bit weird at the moment because we're waiting on the TTB and all blah 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 blah. Right. So what I'm going to tell you guys is kind of the rules that we went with when we started and what we followed as the guide of American single malt. And then if you want, we can dive into what the TTB is doing and all that stuff, but we don't have to.
You guys are on the commission, right?
Owen was. I don't believe we have a foot in the commission at the moment. He stepped back from that about a year ago. But we were a pretty large part of it up until it got like into questions and all that stuff. So American, straightforward. Here in America, single refers to location, not grain. So everything we make has to come from one single location / distillery. Malt refers to what we're made of, which is 100% malted barley. And we're whiskey because we're a grain product that sits in a wooden vessel. So Scotch is also 100% malted barley. Why are we not Scotch?
Not from Scotland.
We're not from Scotland, right? We're in America. Pretty easy one. There's some other differences too, but that's the main one. So we start like Scotch, but we finish like bourbon. Bourbon has to be aged in new American white oak barrels. And if it's straight bourbon, it has to be in those barrels for a minimum of 2 years. We also have to be in those barrels for a minimum of 2 years. Why are we not bourbon?
No corn.
Corn.
No corn. Yeah. Corn, bourbon has to be 51% corn. The other 49% can be a mixture of other grains, right? But we have no corn, so we can't be bourbon. So we start like Scotch, we finish like bourbon. We're neither one. We're American single malt whiskey. Kind of clear as mud, right? So does anyone want to get into the nerdy details of like the TTB and what the heck they're doing and all that? Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Just,
Why
the
would you
lineup would
position
be
yourselves
nice.
to use? Sorry, go ahead, Jimsheed.
I was just saying the lineup would be nice.
He's like getting the whiskey already. I'm done listening to you.
We can sip while you talk. Yeah.
Yeah, we can sip while we talk, huh? Let's do that. I like that idea, and then we can talk more about that. So you guys have quite a bit of liquid. I have all the bottles next to me. Let's jump in. So what we're going to start with is the original. Does anyone already have stuff in their glass?
Original is good.
Original is good. Cool. So, some fun nerdy things about what this liquid is. This is our flagship. We call it the OG. This is going to be a marriage of 4, 5, 6, and 7-year-old barrels. So Stranahan's now does a minimum aging of 4 years because we're a little older. We have a little older stock, and we can do that. When we first started out, the minimum was 2, but now we do a minimum of 4. So again, this is 4, 5, 6, and 7. We then actually cut this down from barrel proof to bottle proof using Eldorado spring water. So all of our liquids are cut from barrel to bottle using that same water. It's pretty phenomenal water. It's actually second best water in the world right now. First is, anyone want to guess?
Alps.
No. Well, kind of. Fiji, not Louisville. No, they have good water too, but different reason. No, Fiji's number 1 right now, actually, for best water in the world, and then Eldorado's number 2. So we use that water to cut it from barrel proof down to bottle proof, which for this expression is going to be 94 proof. Okay. Am I missing anything on this? I don't think so. 47% alcohol. It's good stuff. So go and pour yourself some if you haven't already. I'm going to be spitting tonight, so apologies if anyone finds that offensive. Don't watch me. I have many tastings to do tomorrow too, so I'll be going into this cup. So on this one, I'll walk you guys through. You guys have probably been walked through many, many tastings in your day. I'll walk you through just kind of like what I like to do. First things first, I love just looking at it, rolling it around the glass. I like to see viscosity, color, different things like that. Just get an idea of what you're drinking, right? You can tell a lot from just looking at color. The other next thing I like to do is just give it a light nose. So I like to bring it up to the nose just gently and softly. And I actually just leave my mouth open, breathe in through both nose and mouth together. And I just like to kind of almost have a conversation with the whiskey is the way I like to look at it. So saying something like, hello, how are you today? I'm great, thanks for asking.
Richard, is
And
that you?
right. That's exactly it. Love that guy. Actually, currently going through his stuff.
Are you
right?
gonna throw the whiskey on the ground? Because I'm
Oh
waiting
yeah,
for it.
that guy is crazy. Just spinning that down there. Richard Patterson's phenomenal. If you ever want to listen to somebody that really knows their stuff when it comes to blending and tasting, but he's so right with the way he approaches it. Because if a lot of people just dive in there and immediately singeing everything, it's gonna throw your taste and everything else. So I definitely like to get a light smell. What do you guys smell on this?
Wood.
Wood, oaky, right?
Apricots.
Apricots is a big one for me as well. I got a weird one for you guys. So on this one, I've always gotten overly ripe cantaloupe. Not sure why. I'd say about 30% of people I tell this to actually smell that, but that's
I
always
get a
been.
lot of that sweet, dusty wicker note.
Dusty wicker. That's a good one. Cool. Next thing I like to do, I like to take a small sip and just swallow that. Gonna get the palate rolling, get warmed up a little bit. This is a little higher proof, so. Cool. Next, take your tasting sip, hold it in your mouth as long as comfortable, and just roll it around. Move it around with your tongue, get it underneath on your cheeks, on your lips. Just move it around for as long as comfortable, and then swallow that down. All right, guys, what do we taste?
Chocolate.
Chocolate's a big one for me. Recently, I've been getting a lot of like a chocolate cherry note on this one,
Mm-hmm.
on the original, like a chocolate covered cherry of some kind.
Dark chocolate.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, not a sweet chocolate or white chocolate for sure, but yeah, dark cherry, dark chocolate somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Got some honey and cinnamon.
Yeah,
Ooh.
honey is a great one. Of course, always getting that caramel vanilla from that barrel, right? The oak definitely comes through on this. That new oak is very apparent, I think, on most of our liquids. What else?
Marmalade on toast.
Marmalade on toast. Okay,
Almost burnt
I like
toast.
that. Almost burnt toast. I like that. A little charred toast. Nice.
So what I'm noticing is that compared to like some bourbons, for example, that have a higher amount of malted barley in them, this being 100% malted barley is a lot more of that mellow. It's a lot more mellow of a malty taste than like, for example, like Frey Ranch. All their bourbons are like, even though there's not a whole lot of malted barley in them, it's really forward. So how do you tone that down?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's kind of one of the things with Colorado and the fact that we're using new oak, and with barley to kind of tone that down. You could do it through distillation. You could change some stuff in fermentation as well. You could also change up the amount of different levels of malt that you're using. If we use 4 different levels of malted barley, we're getting into the caramel, the chocolate, the black. And so if we were using more pale malt than we do, that may bring that down a little bit. But I personally think that's one of the beauties of it. Right?
No, that's what I was saying. Like it already is. It's toned down compared to.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that I honestly don't have a good answer for you on that one. I think that's just part of what's come through our distillation. We're not using pot stills necessarily. We're using a hybrid still, right? So we have a hybrid pot column still, where a lot of American single malts are using full pot stills. They're possibly using some kind of hybrid of the two. I think our stills do a really good job of adding a lot of great character without stripping too much out with the column, right? Somewhere kind of in that middle. I'd say that might be where it is. There are some places that, when you get that pot still only, that can get really malty, especially if you're doing on grain fermentation and on grain distillation. That can get pretty heavy pretty quickly, right?
Can you talk more about the specialty malts that you're using? I'd be curious the percentages in the malt bill and kind of where that varies. Familiar with other distilleries that do that, so I'm curious.
Yeah, percentages is something, to be honest, they don't tell me a ton of. I will tell you this, it's enough to where they are hand adding the heavier malts. So into a 2,700 pound batch of grain, they're hand adding the malted grains into it from the top of the mill. So it's a small percentage of each, but it's enough to add some character. And I'll tell you what, those chocolate malts and black malts take over pretty quickly. Doesn't take a lot. So yeah, sadly, I don't know the exact percentages of that, but it's not a ton. I would say it's under probably 5% for each. Cool. Next, if you guys want to add water to this, feel free. I don't have great access to water next to me to do this without making a huge mess, so I'm going to skip that part. But does anyone have any questions on this liquid before we kind of move on and maybe go back to that American single malt category stuff?
Just a quick one. What's the difference between this one and the just a single malt that you had before it was called original? Is it just the age mostly?
Yeah, good question. So if you've had a bottle from us previously and it maybe didn't have this label on it, this white label on the bottom, it just had this top one, that was going to be a marriage of 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-old whiskey. So as we got older, had older stock, they upped the age from to 4, 5, 6, and 7. But that's really the only difference. There's no different. There's never really been any change in mash bill. There's never really been any change in what yeast we use, what we do through distillation. The real only difference in all of our expressions is barreling, age, proof. That's really it.
Thanks.
So that's one good thing to know as we go through all these liquids. Unlike some distilleries, or I'd say most distilleries that have, a bourbon, a rye, different mash bills for each one of those, or multiple different bourbons with different mash bills, we do the exact same thing every single time through distillation. So all of our liquids start from the same place going into the barrel. All the differences come after, which I'll talk about each liquid and what each one of those differences is.
And you're only using column stills.
Pot column stills.
Okay.
So I should have brought a picture. So the still, if you guys just Google Stranahan's stills, you might be able to see a picture of them. We have 3 stripping stills. Those stripping stills are 800 gallons a piece. They're all separate from each other. They're basically 800-gallon pots that then feed into a column that has 4 different plates. So 4-section column, right? And then from there, it's going down to a shotgun condenser, which is also going back to Michael's comment of being a little bit lighter, being that it's in a shotgun condenser versus, warm tubes or anything else like that. That's also going to make that lighter. So, yeah. So it's a little bit of a hybrid still, right? Being that it's 4-plate and pot still. You kind of get best of both worlds. You get a lot of flavor. You also get a little bit higher proof coming out of that first distillation. So the proof coming out of that first distillation is actually going to be 80 proof or 40% alcohol. From there, we have basically identical spirit stills that are just a little bit smaller. So we have 2 spirit stills, again, completely separated, that run one's 240 gallons, one's 220 gallons. We fill those up with basically exactly the amount of liquid we get out of that first shipping run. We fill those two up, run them off, and from there we're getting 140 proof spirit on the other side. So we're getting that's the beauty of having those 4 plates on each still, right? We're getting up to 140 proof in 2 distillations, and still retaining a lot of that flavor. From there, by the way, we cut down to 110 proof and then go into barrel. That kind of covers all that. Fun little nerdy fact: we start with 2,400 gallons of wash, and we end up with about 220 gallons of high wines at the very end of that. Cool. How we doing? You guys want to move into your next liquid?
Yeah. What's the order we're gonna go in? Just so some people want to line it up in front of them.
Yeah. Why don't we go with original Blue Peak? Let's go Diamond Peak. Why don't we go New York Cask, Mountain Angel, and then end with Sherry? In my experience, Sherry can kind of just taint the palate a little bit. It's also a very nice dessert whiskey, so we'll end there, I think.
Wait,
And
did we have a sherry? I have a
We do.
bonded.
you should have a sherry.
I've
We
got
don't have a bonded.
It says bonded.
It says bonded.
What?
Vadim.
Maybe you called it
I have one
bonded.
too.
Okay. Then if it's red, then I just labeled it wrong.
okay. Yeah, it's red. That's the
50%.
sherry.
Shit. Well, if one of them should be sherry, so I might have just printed labels wrong. Sorry.
So whatever the odd one out is.
Yeah. So they're all, there should be 6. If you have 5 are
The-
right and one is not a sherry, it's sherry.
The good
Okay.
news is, if you open it and smell it, it's usually pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So is it last or
It's sherry.
second?
Yeah.
We're gonna go last.
We'll
on
do
that one.
sherry last. 'Cause
So just to confirm, it's original Blue Peak, Diamond Peak, New York Rye Cask, Mountain Angel, and then not bonded.
yes, not
Got it.
bonded. Yeah, we actually have done one bonded release, but that was just for Cash Thief, which is a special event we do. Yeah, we've never fully released a bonded product,
So what's
which is a bummer.
What's the percentage on the sherry one? Just because it says 50% on here.
94. Sorry, 94 proof, 47%.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I found
Cool.
where my mistake happened. I didn't copy and paste properly. Sorry.
Dang it. That's okay.
It is
No
the
worries.
bonded and it is 47%. So you should all be. 2 of you got the one that says sherry. The rest of you got the one that says bonded. That's what happens when you're doing this stuff at 2 in the morning. Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
taste just as good, I promise.
Doing admin work at 2 in the morning is never a great idea. I actually do my best admin work at probably like 1 a.m. though, I tell you.
Okay. Balmer speak.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. Let's go ahead and dive into Blue Peak and we can talk a little bit more.
Blue Peak is the only one that doesn't come with a shot glass. What's up with that?
That someone made that decision that is way higher up in this company than I am. This is our entry level product. And so, it's probably somebody higher up said that it didn't make financial sense. I don't know. I honestly have no idea why they did that. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally because all the other bottles are threaded at the top here. And then this one's not. So they had to make a separate bottle for this, which is, I don't know, doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's a higher up call than I am. So Blue Peak, the big one you're going to see here at the bottom of this, you probably can't see it in my camera, but it says Solera method down there on the label. Is anyone familiar with the Solera method?
Mhm.
Yeah. So we have these big barrels, these big fooders. They're roughly 5,000 gallons each. There's 3 of them. And what we do, we take our 4-year product. So this is going to be our youngest, right? We take our 4-year product. We're going to put that into those fooders. We're going to let that sit for 3 months to a year, somewhere in that range. From there, after 3 months to a year, we're going to pull up 30%, bottle that in the Blue Peak, cutting it down with Eldorado water. And then we're going to fill those fruiters back to the very top, with new 4-year-old barrels. And we're just going to do that over and over and over and over, making a more smooth, consistent product over time. That Solera method is a really, it's a common method that a lot of distilleries are taking up now and just making younger whiskey a little bit more complex, right? So 4-year, this one's going to be 43%, 86 proof. It is the youngest and the lowest proof thing that we make. This is what we use as our cocktail whiskey in our lounge. Most of our cocktails are going to be made with this. It's just also a really good, I call it the gateway whiskey from bourbon to American single malt. It's a really nice and approachable if you're not really used to drinking, scotches or 100% barley all the time. What do you guys get on this one?
I get marzipan and a lot of malt.
You get more malt on this one than the last one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Cool.
What kind of cocktail would you do with this one? Because for me, it has so much malt, I would be concerned. Right, I think you would want a specific cocktail.
I mean, we do all of them, all the classics that you can think of. I mean, there's always an old fashioned, of course, always there. We do a lot of gold rushes with these. That's a big one that we, we'll take out to food and wine festivals or other places. We'll do a gold rush. This goes very well with fruity cocktails. We did a watermelon cocktail that was just like out of this world. It was incredible. We've done horchata cocktails, like New York sours go really well with this. Just regular whiskey sours go really well with this. Yeah, it really does. It does come off a little bit malty, right? But somehow that kind of mellows out as soon as you add water or ice to that. I think that goes more into the sweet realm. You can add water if you have some next to you and see if it does that for you.
I caught barbecue sauce on the nose on this one, which was really weird to me.
That's an interesting one. I don't know if I've ever heard that. Interesting. Okay, cool. If you guys haven't already, take your sip.
I remember Owen talking about this one and this one being not his favorite. He was like, it's so pedestrian. He was like, I have to put it out, but I don't like it. I want to do something more complex.
Yeah, like I said, we call this our gateway whiskey. It is definitely the least complex, and it's supposed to be out there for the crowd pleaser, right? It's kind of the purpose of this one.
But it's
a lot of people love this one. It is.
So good.
That's
like
kind of the thing. With the lower proof, it is very sweet. It is very approachable. Yeah, a lot of people really love this one, especially I've noticed, like, people that aren't super into whiskey, this is a big favorite for them. If they just drink occasionally and go into whiskey a little bit, or they're getting into it, they approach this one first. Usually this is a really good one for them. But when you start looking for those complexities and those other things and you're really nerdy, it can be a little lackluster sometimes, right? Compared to some of these others we're going to get into.
Hey, I got a general question for you.
Yeah.
You said it started with Flying Dog Beard, and you don't know the mash bill. Do they still use the same recipe they did when they made Flying Dog Beer made it out of Flying Dog?
From my understanding, there were slight tweaks when Flying Dog moved up and all that. There were some slight tweaks there. They started using a little bit different grain from a different farm and all that kind of stuff. So it was a little different, but slight tweaks, nothing too crazy. The idea was to keep it as consistent as possible, which is the other reason that if you go to the distillery, you're going to see a boil kettle and a whirlpool next to the mash tun, which if you're super nerdy, you're going to see that and question that very quickly because most distilleries don't have those two pieces of machinery. But the whole point of that was to keep it consistent, right, with what was being made before.
So they're not used anymore?
No, they are. Yep, still used.
So now I'm going to be nerdy. What's the whirlpool used for?
So yeah, the boiling kettle and the whirlpool. So you guys are all familiar with that, like that first part of the process. So we're going to just take the mash tun. We're going to fill it up with grain, fill it up with the water, ready to round, of course, converting non-fermentable sugars to fermentable sugars. We don't do anything on grain, so we're then actually going to drain out that distiller's wort through that grain, pull the grain out of the mash tun, and we actually give that grain off to a local farmer who then uses it as cattle feed, other stuff like that. So from there, that liquid goes to the boil kettle. The boil kettle just boils that liquid. This, if you were making beer, is where you'd add your hops and anything else that you're going to throw into the boil there. Mostly it's going to be hops, right? So that's where you're going to boil it off, because if you're making beer, that goes into the fermenter and then you don't boil it again. So it has to be a clean, drinkable liquid before it goes in the fermenter. From there, it goes in the whirlpool. The whirlpool, just exactly what it sounds like. It's a big tank that just sends the liquid in on the side. And so as it goes in, it starts to spin and creates a whirlpool. Whirlpool uses something called the centrifuge effect, which basically pulls particulate from solution to the middle, down to the bottom, creating a little bit of a cone that they can then keep that cone there as it spins, but drain off that liquid and pull out any particulate that got through that first, that mash bed, right? So it's just cleaning it up and pulling out any particulates. One thing that Owen has said to me in the past that I thought was really interesting is that Stranahan's is beautifully inefficient, because technically when we're boiling and doing the whirlpool, we're actually removing yeast nutrients and other things that would actually help in fermentation for our purposes, right? And so it's one of those things that we still do that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, but to keep consistent with what we've always done, we still keep that. And then from there it goes in the fermenters, where we let it sit for about a week, 5 to 7 days, and we add our yeast, which is a brewer's yeast. That's about as far as I can go on what details on our yeast, sadly. Cool. What do you guys think of Blue Peak? Yeah. Yes.
I think it's great. I think it's,
Nice.
like I said, dangerously easy to drink. Actually enjoy
Yeah.
it a lot.
Lori, I saw you out there. Just,
Brooke and I were chatting that there's the malt at first has this kind of almost mezcal finish. It's this vegetal mineral finish when you're done with it. But then like the first one, the more you drink it, the more the dark chocolate and darker malts it's like a thin coating on your tongue.
Oh,
that's really the only ones I'm
there
getting
it
is the dark malts.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think, like, for me, the more I drink this, the more I just get apricot. Then like the cherry side of that chocolate covered cherry start to just show up very heavily for me. Which that's the beauty of this. For me, this one's actually quite light, and I don't get a lot of that maltiness on this one. It might also be because I work at the distillery and I drink this product a lot, right? Cool. Let's go and dive into the next one. And we're on Diamond Peak, right? Refresh my memory. Yeah. I did not put them in order. I should have.
Yeah, I was really disappointed when I was looking at these that they're all peaks, but Sherry is not Red Peak.
Cherry Peak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny? Yeah, it is. It is a little bit, they all have something usually back to the mountains, except for the distiller exclusive and Sherry, really. Well, and original, I guess, too.
You guys set up the rules and then break them yourselves.
We do. Yeah, we start somewhere and then completely change our mind.
We're gonna put shot glasses on every bottle, except this one.
Except this one. Yeah, there's usually one exception, and
I need to hear the story of the shot glasses at some point. Of like,
oh, we'll cover it. That's
Okay.
usually some of my last stories.
okay.
Okay. So Diamond Peak. This one's kind of fun. This is a rotating distillery exclusive. if you guys have had an old bottle of this that ever had a black top and a little bit of a darker label without this white label on the bottom, has anyone had one of those? Yeah. Okay. That was basically Blue Peak before Blue Peak was a thing. So it was done in the Solera method in our old fooders, still 4-year. And the other difference was it was at 94. What's really, you want to talk about multi-character, that one is just dark. It was a dark multi liquid. And I'm kind of sad it got discontinued because it was phenomenal. But we had to switch some stuff up with the fooders, and that's when they kind of switched everything to Blue Peak. But now that went from being one of our younger expressions to one of our oldest. So Down Peak now is a rotating distillery exclusive that is roughly going to last about a year. The aim is to make the liquid last about a year in market. That doesn't always happen. So this lasted about 10 months, and we've been out of this liquid for probably the last 3 months or so. So it's pretty cool. We're getting to try this. This one's going to be at 90 proof, and this is going to be 4-year Stranahans that we then, this is where we get into our finishing and other stuff. We're going to take that 4-year liquid and put it into barrels we get from the Bushmills distillery for another 4 years. So it's 8 years total, with 4 of those being in Bushmill casks. 90 proof on this one, like I said. And this was one of my favorite liquids that has come out of the distillery, as you can tell. I'm getting close. This is a really good one. I'm sad it's gone, but the next one's going to be a lot of fun. I'll give you guys a little spoiler. The next one is actually going to be a tequila finish. It's going to be out in the next month-ish, hopefully, depending where you live.
And it's going to be
California,
still,
you guys should see it pretty quickly.
it's still going to be called Diamond Peak.
Yep. The way you're going to tell, again, you guys probably can't tell from this camera, but the label here will be different. This label will be the same. So it'll say extra añejo cask finish here, where this one says Bushmills. There's also a year on this. So this one says 2022. The next one will say 2023. This is one of my favorite liquids. I really like this one.
Yeah, I realize
also
your batches are pretty big. I mean, the bottle I have here is nearly bottle 12,000.
Yes. Yeah. Which one do I have? Yeah, 11,000. We're still in the category of craft, right? But we're right on the edge of craft, the craft size, which I believe is 40 barrels, right? I believe the new Down Peak we just did was somewhere around, I think I saw 23 tequila casks, somewhere around there, 24. And then they, of course, marry in some older Stranahans as well into that. Yeah, what do you guys got in this one?
It is sweet. Smells sweet.
Smells sweet, right?
Like one of those caramel hard candies.
Yeah, for whatever is on this one, I actually get more just ethanol note on the nose for this one, which I don't get on the taste. Just kind of one of those weird things for my palate, but
I'm getting English toffee.
Yeah,
I get a little butteriness.
I get a lot of chocolate on this one, but like almost like a cocoa powder chocolate.
maybe because you just said that, but on that taste, I got a lot of that too. Does anyone drink Bushmills fairly often? Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
The single malts,
Yeah.
12-year.
I have a 12-year too.
This is such good liquid. Not to bust another one, but it's I think 12 years quite the steal as far as Bushmills liquid goes. Yeah, I
Did
get
Lauren send it to you?
that multi-character. Say again?
Did Lauren send it to you?
No, no,
Oh.
Bushmills is one of our companies too that I work with. So I have all their fun liquids right here next to me, actually. Yeah, I get definitely some of the characters from Bushmills. You can kind of get that light, sweet toffee, right, and that kind of shortbread almost that you get from Irish whiskey.
Did it Bushmills, the Bushmills cask used to be like a distillery only special cask you guys did? I know Jane brought me back a bottle.
It did. It definitely did. I actually have that bottle right here. This is the old one. Yeah, Bushmills single malt. And this one was at 94. So if you had this one, it was at 94. The Diamond Peak went down to 90 proof.
But
Might
it's
be a
the
fun
same
one to
thing.
compare. Same liquid. Yeah. Same liquid. Diamond Peak is a little bit older, actually, on average. I think just they let those go a little longer. That's something Owen was really, really good at. Was always putting enough barrels aside when he does put something out to play with it a little later, right? He's always been really good at that part of it. Cool. What else do you guys want to know? We can dive into anything.
Why is everything in the mid 90s?
So 94 is where they always kept everything in the start. And, as people come into the company, different decision makers, they like different numbers. So the people making decisions now prefer the 90 number for a lot of our new expressions. We'll probably always keep original and cherry at 94. That's just kind of traditionally where they've always been. But as we're releasing new things, I think we're going to see more and more of those releases right around that 90 for us.
So are you chill filtering at that point?
It's yes and no. So easy rule of thumb is everything 90 below chill filtered. Everything above 90 is non-chill filtered.
I'm just looking at these expressions and you guys are kind of all over the map with like
all over the board. Yeah.
43, 45. Like the
yeah, and then you
Diamond
get
Peak
into our
is
experimentals and our cast strengths and all those, and those get funky as well.
but like the rye cask is, I would think at least for the distillery exclusive or the experimentals, like the 10-year, you would just keep it at cast strength, but the 10-year is at 45.1. The New York rye cask is at 45. So all of those are going to be filtered.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and there are all different kinds of opinions around chill filtering. I'm probably not the best person to speak to on that one, but from what I've heard just around the distillery, they've done different tests on both sides of it. And
I mean, you're in an area
with it.
where it actually gets below freezing. So I respect that the need to, if you need to do it for consistency of look, but it's just more work for some, like for the 10-year-old Mountain Angel, like it's, you're just barely under. Why would you want to filter some of that goodness out? But somebody above my pay grade made that decision, so I'm sure it tastes better this way.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I had the first batch 1 and batch 2 before this. This is batch 3 of Mountain Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Batch 1 was a little harsh, and I believe that one, if I recall, did not get chill filtered, and there was just a little bit of harshness to it. I believe that one was at, I want to say that was at like 94. They might Mountain Angel is the one liquid where they get a little wonky, like you notice it's at 90.2 proof, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a weird number, and they've always kind of done that a little weird. I can actually tell you. Oh. I had batch 1 right here. Yeah, so this one's at 94.6.
Okay.
So they kind of played around with this. I'll tell you, as we've gone through from batch 1 to batch 3, each batch has gone better. Batch 1 was a little harsh, a little overly oaky. And so I think lowering that down helped bring out some of those sweeter notes, which we'll get to 10-year too.
So all of your whiskey starts out in virgin American oak barrels.
Yep, with level 3 char.
Level
They're all
3 char.
from Independent Stave Company as well.
Any plans to reuse your barrels to do like a double barrel fin? I mean, because right there with bourbon, you have to use the new oak. With I don't think with single malt that is actually a requirement. So
Currently, no. Yeah, currently it's not. So we've always used it as a requirement. You know,
Okay.
that's always kind of been our framework.
Mhm.
But yeah, we can get into the TTV now. As you guys probably know, there kind of been a lot of differences in opinion of where this should go. And right now they're saying, I believe you can use any cask. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's an age requirement on it right now either, which I think is very, very interesting.
Well, because we have such a varying climate throughout the US, aging in Texas
Yeah.
is going to be different than aging in New York. So it makes sense to
Very,
not.
very much. Yeah. And
to not
Colorado and
force it.
Texas aging are very, I don't want to say they're the same, but they have a lot of similarities. You know, Colorado, we're all over the board in temperature wise. So we get very cold. We get quite warm in the summer, and we have 40-degree temperature swings daily. And because of that, our barrels get a lot of interaction because of our climate. So yeah, I mean, it's why you might not see anything too much older than maybe 12 years from us. Things just get very, very oaky very quickly with our liquid. So yeah, I mean, being able to use barrels might be interesting to see, because that'll allow us to, of course, extend that timeline and hopefully have a little bit bolder liquid. And
Well, I mean,
yeah, I mean, we
technically the
put some
Solaris
stuff in there.
system is like it's like reusing a barrel, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Technically.
technically yes, right? It's
Because
hard to say
eventually
how old
that in a
liquid
Solaris
is in
system,
there, right?
that wood is not giving you any influence, and you're just using it as a bat.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's actually like with the old Diamond Peak, what we had to do, because those barrels were gone, right? Those fruiters weren't doing anything anymore, and so it was time to swap them over.
What would you
But
say
yeah.
have been the craziest finishes that you guys have done? Like your favorite that worked really well, and then the one that was a complete fail?
So from what I've tasted, we've had a lot of finishes that I haven't had. One of the fun things I'm planning on doing is actually going and recording tasting videos of like the entire archive. That's on my list. It's going to be really boring for a lot of people, but fun for like Stranahan fans. But my favorite has actually been an experimental we had that was a gin cask finish. Yeah, it was really interesting. So it was a barrel that, of course, came from bourbon first, right? So it came from America, then went to Scotland, had Scotch in it, then went to a gin distillery. Sadly, I don't know any of the distilleries that these went to. I know the gin distillery had their gin in there for 2 years, and then we put 4-year-old Stranahans in there for another 3 years. And that was an experimental at, I believe the proof was like 103 or 110, somewhere in there. That one was fun. I'm a big gin fan as well. So for me, that was a fantastic, just super complex barrel. You know, you got a little bit of juniper, not too heavy. What you mostly got on it was actually the floral, citrus. You got kind of those lighter ends of gin, and then kind of the heavier spiciness of Stranahan's, which I thought was super cool. The weirdest thing, you guys all know about Snowflake? No? Cool. Let's talk about Snowflake, and then I'll tell you which one was weird. So Snowflake is a special release we do once a year, usually on the first Saturday of December. And we've always had people come camp out at the distillery for usually a couple days beforehand to come grab one of these bottles. So it's a limited release. I wish you guys could see a little bit more of this, but usually the bottles are sold for roughly 129, 130, right around that range. And what it is our head distiller, our master distiller, basically takes all those weird finishing barrels that we have. So we have a lot of wine barrels, we have a lot of cognac barrels, we have some tequila, New York rye, we have barrels from other distilleries. There's another great Colorado distillery called Laws. We actually took one of their malt rye barrels and took our whiskey and put it in that barrel. We have all kinds of stuff, right? So our master distiller will take all of his favorites and he'll make a marriage, a blend of our stuff that's different every time, which is why they call it Snowflake, because it's always unique and different. And that's the limited release we do every year. So this one was Humboldt Peak. It's also always named after a 14er. But this was a blend of, it was a base of 9-year Stranahans. The second two largest things were rum finish and Cabernet finish. The next biggest thing was the sherry finish. And then they put a little bit of a bonded barrel, like half of a bonded barrel in there. And a couple other things too. And this one, they've always kept at 94 proof, just as tradition. So that's Snowflake. To answer your question of what was the weirdest thing I've ever had at Stranahan's, there was an old Snowflake that we had bottles left over for. They always keep in the vault like cases of Snowflake to go back on, do other tastings with, kind of have fun with. They never sell anything past the release date. We always sell out, but they keep a couple back for us. And one of them was it was a wine finish that went terribly bad. It was good, but now as it's been sitting in the bottle, it's aged and it's actually like sulfured and oxidized, and it's gnarly. It was great. It was great when they released it, but the bottles we have now are not good. So yeah, wine barrels, I don't know if you guys have ever had a wine finish like oxidize on you before. Oh boy, they get gnarly quick. So drink your wine finishes. Anything in a sherry barrel, drink it. That's my advice.
So you mentioned the New York rye casks a lot. Why New York? What's special about the New York rye?
Yeah, so one of the things about us now is we're actually owned by the parent company Proxima, right? So Proxima owns a bunch of distilleries, and one of the beauties of that is that gives us access to barrels. So Bushmills is one of our companies. The rye barrels that we actually get are from one of the distilleries we have called Black Dirt Distillery, which, by the way, since we're talking about this, why don't we just dive into it? So the Black Dirt Distillery is in upstate New York, and man, I'm cracking a new bottle for this. It's in upstate New York, and they make a 3-year-old rye that is 100% rye, so it's 90% unmalted and 10% malted rye, and it's at 100 proof. So we get the barrels from that, and we actually take a marriage of our 5 to 9-year-old Stranahans, and 2.5 of the years of that 5 to 9 year are actually going to be in the rye cask. That makes sense. And it's at 90 proof.
Really
This one, I'm a little biased on this one. This was the last thing that I got to help cut and blend and batch before I got promoted to this job. So this was kind of my last hurrah at the distillery as far as like getting your hands dirty. And so this one's special to me. I have this one at cast strength in a little flask too.
I'm digging
really
this.
Yeah,
I'm digging this. This is great.
I'm glad to hear it. This one's really good. Do you guys get the rye notes on this?
For sure.
You get like that rye bread right away on the nose, right?
Mhm.
To me, it's not quite toasted. It's like just raw rye bread, not raw, but like unaltered and untoasted. Cold, I guess would be the word.
Do they still sell this one?
They do.
I'm
So
afraid
this
to
is our
ask.
current, excuse me. We're talking sometimes and drinking whiskey is a challenge. This is our current distillery exclusive. So the bad news about that is you have to come to the distillery to get this. The cool thing is you guys are getting to try it. Because normally we don't ship this out to anybody. So it's pretty cool. One little hint tip for you guys. Eventually, this will probably be Diamond Peak
Oh, cool.
one day. How many years is that? I have no idea. It might be a while.
You said down in where?
This will probably be Diamond Peak.
Oh, Diamond Peak.
Yeah, one day. Like, because it is our rotating exclusive that we release out to the world, basically. They usually take, and I don't know their plans for sure, but they usually take our exclusives at the distillery, and eventually they end up to be Diamond Peak. We're only 2 batches in the Diamond Peak right now, so that's the trend currently. What else you guys want to know?
Do we get to hear about the metal cup yet?
Sure, let's do it. So, the reason they did this, I'm gonna tell you guys the story we tell at the distillery, and then I'll tell you the real reason we use them. So the story we tell at the distillery is this is actually a throwback to cowboy culture. So way back when, cowboys, you know, they'd be riding around wherever they're riding around, usually in a drier climate. They'd have their bottle on their hip, and they would have real corks in those bottles. Real corks, if you guys drink wine or just nerdy, like I'm sure you are, these corks don't do well in dry climates. They shrivel up and will either fall in or out of the bottle, right? The whiskey is then going to start spilling everywhere, down their leg, on the horse, on the ground. No one wants that. And so some smart man realized that if you take tin, you heat it up over fire, it becomes malleable. When you slap it down on the glass, as it's hot, it'll shrink down, cool down, and actually seal down to the bottle. They can then ride around, not spill any whiskey. When they go where they're going, they pop it off, and they have a glass. Then they can heat that cup, sanitize it. Didn't realize in time that was good for them. Pop it back on, and keep riding. So that's why these are on here, and that's where this came from. Now, let's talk what Jeff Graver was thinking when he did this. You might notice one thing. Our bottles are quite tall, right? And, you know, the best way to get onto the top shelf at a liquor store, make a really tall bottle and make it stand out. So this cap does 2 things. 1, it makes the bottle taller, and 2, it makes it pop, makes it stand out, and makes it very visible. So there is the cowboy culture, because he is kind of a cowboy. Not kind of, he's very much a cowboy. If you see pictures of him, he's a mountain man, he's a cowboy. But there was some clever marketing on his part with this as well. That's the story of that. The other thing too, the flat back that we have on these bottles, that is also that kind of throwback to cowboy culture. Back in the day, they used to engrave into the bottle their name with a knife. So when they went to the saloon to get their bottle filled, that's where they'd fill those, they'd put on the counter, do the drinking, they would know whose bottle is who, no issues. So we emboss in the back, because we're sophisticated now and we have technology, we emboss on the back with our name or address. It also lays flat, which is quite nice. I don't know if there was, Jess has never told me if there's actually any reason why he did that besides the cowboy culture. But it makes the bottle definitely stand out a little bit.
So question, with the having the address embossed on there, what happens if you guys move?
I mean, the good news is we run through bottles so quickly. We're running through our product pretty quickly, so they can make that change pretty fast, I think. But yeah, that'll have to change. The other thing is I don't see us moving anytime soon. We are getting a new barrel warehouse because we are currently fully out of space. We have no room for barrels at the moment. But the distillery is not going anywhere. And they're about to put a bunch of money into it as well, I think. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. Luckily. But yeah, we can't get a hold of glass at all. The Diamond Peak liquid was ready probably 2 months ago. We were just waiting on glass labels, all the normal issues we've been having everyone's been having for the last 2 years, 3 years now. Cool. You guys want to dive into Mount Angel? Do we have more questions? Will we talk more?
Let's
Am I
do
going
it.
too fast for anybody?
No, you're good. I know one other brand that has a shot glass on top of their bottle, but I'm not gonna bring it up.
Which brand
And
is
it's
that?
part of your portfolio too.
Yeah, Tin Cup.
Yeah.
I have some interesting facts about Tin Cup too.
I wonder if that's related. It's not related in any way.
So Tin Cup is named after the town of Tin Cup, which is a town here in Colorado. It's an old mining town, and the history is actually the exact same for the cup. So the miners did the same thing as they took their bottles into the mine. They put sheet metal on top of it, and that sealed it down. So that's also the same thing with Tin Cup. That's where it came from. That was also a creation of Just Graber. So Tin Cup actually gets bottled at Stranahan's and comes out of the Stranahan's distillery. We source that liquid. We cut it down with Eldorado water, and the original Tin Cup, just the American whiskey, the main blue label, that actually has a little bit of Stranahan's in it. About 4% is in there. So they take a couple 4-year bottles and put that in there, or 4-year barrels. Sorry.
So the tall shot glass, was that always a screw on with Stranahan's?
No.
It used to just pop on and fall right off, right?
Pop on, and I'll tell you what, some of those were hard to get off. I mean, they would, so it was more of just a bottle like the Blue Peak that just had, just a smooth top to it. And they would just smack those on there and they would basically suction down. And if you flew or traveled at all with those bottles, those suckers were, I've heard people taking pliers to them, get them off. So that's why they started adding threads to them, because it's way easier to get them off. Those old bottles are fun. Some of the old cherry are still like that. You can still find those out in the wild. The old cherry labels. So you'll see the red caps, and some of those you gotta really pry on them. Try twisting always, but you can see 10 years also a favorite of mine. Getting down on this one. So 10-year Mountain Angel. They called it Mountain Angel because we have very thirsty angels here in Colorado. In the first couple of years of us aging, and of course you guys are all familiar with the term angel share, right? We know that's just evaporation. So we lose roughly 8 to 10% in the first few years of our liquid to angel share. And that's per year, by the way. And then that number drops down to more like 6 to 8% for the rest of the time that we're aging. And so we get a lot of loss out of our barrels to angels. So that's part of the reason they called this Mountain Angel, was to pay homage to those thirsty angels that we have here in Colorado drinking all of our whiskey. But the reality is, and part of the reason that these batches have been so small, batch 1 was 500 bottles, batch 2 was 600 bottles, and now we're into the thousands. But even though we have 10-year-old barrels, there's just not much in them. And because of that, it takes a lot of barrels for us to get any kind of stock worth of liquid. So that is one of the special things about this. This is the biggest batch of this we've released so far. This is the first time too that we've ever actually had this for sale at the distillery and semi available to get your hands on, which is pretty cool. They're hoping to make this a continually released expression that you can actually get your hands on repeatedly. So hopefully soon, but we're on the right track. This is the first time we have had it pretty readily available. Batch 1 and 2 basically went out to all the basically our best accounts. They got one bottle, our best liquor stores.
Is this available in stores? Like, could we find this in a store, or is this something that's distillery only?
No. So the batch 1 and 2 were not even distillery only. They went out to stores. Are you in California as well?
Yep.
You might be able to find it. This batch is running. We're getting to the end of it. I know it's getting sold out in a lot of places, and liquor stores may have gotten 1 to 3 bottles. And then what they do with it from there, allocation and stuff, you never know. But you should be able to hopefully get your hands on one. I know.
What's the price on a bottle?
So at the distillery, it's $100. Outside of the distillery,
museum pricing.
Yeah, you know how it goes. It's tough. Hopefully, MSRP on this is $100.
Okay.
The next batch will probably go up from there because they realize that $100 for this is pretty insane, and so it'll probably go up. Hopefully, not too much, but yeah, it will hopefully get more widely available, and that should hopefully keep it fairly reasonable. And California is one of our biggest markets, so you guys should get more than other places. Yeah, a lot of sweetness on this one, definitely. Like I was saying, this one is, in my opinion, so much sweeter than some of the older, the first and second batch. The first and second batch were pretty heavy on their oak.
I like it. It's got a little bit more of a bite to it.
It does, yeah. And I think that is that oak character that we're getting, right? We get a lot of those oak spices, kind of that clove note, that black pepper note. I think that really comes just from that age, that time in barrel. And because it is, I mean, it's a lower proof than, some of our other expressions. And yeah, I don't think it's the proof. I think it's just that time in wood giving it that oak spice. This is a favorite of mine. I love Mountain Angel.
It's always the ones that are hardest to find that you end up liking the most. That's just how it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it always is. I'm keeping one of all these bottles to hopefully one day kind of just do a tasting of them all side by side. Yeah, that's what all this is all my like one-off, very special to me bottles from Stranahan's mostly. I have 3 from my Scotland trip most recently, but you guys have any other questions about Stranahan's process or Stranahan's in general? We got one more whiskey. What's been the favorite so far?
New York. New York cask.
Yeah, that's a good one. That one is close to my heart. I love it.
Is Vadim gonna do a poll?
Poll.
Oh yeah, let's do a poll.
I'll do a
wait
poll
till you
at
finish sherry.
Yeah, let's do the sherry first.
Let's get through sherry.
Yeah, I do a poll at the very end. Actually, as we pour the sherry, we have a tradition. So everybody pour your sherry and then turn on your camera.
I'm not going to pour out my 10 years, so I have another glass with me. One thing to note too, as you guys pour the sherry, the sherry is a great example of why it's always great to look at your whiskey, right? Visualize it, look at the legs, look at the color. a really easy way to tell what barrel you're sitting in is looking at the color difference on those. You get into those different barrels, and sometimes they get really dark really fast.
Awesome. Ian, get back here. Ken, Brooke, Kevin, Edgar, coming back into frame. We're gonna take a second and say thank you to Jason and thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, cheers, indeed.
Cheers, guys.
Lanja.
Perfect. So I will say I had an interesting experience because I just finished. I had a nice sip of the New York Rye, and I tend to take really small sips. And I didn't love it at first, but then when I got an actual like legitimate mouth coating enough to actually get a good swallow, I actually really, really liked it. But at first I was just doing not enough liquid and more oxygen. It was very dry for me.
Yeah, I think the rye, especially if you're taking small sips, can actually be a little hot, right? Those spices can come out pretty heavy, but yeah, once you take a full sip, you get all the earthiness and all that kind of complex rye character with the normal Stranahan's complexity as well. I can't speak enough about that liquid. I love it.
That's great.
What do you think about the sherry? And I know having this at the end is a little bit odd, right?
It's the darkest liquid. I don't see
it is the darkest liquid.
And it's not like we're
usually
jumping proof or anything, so it's fine.
No, I usually finish on this one just because I think that sherry really hangs on. And for this, we're finishing mostly in Oloroso sherry barrels. We're getting real ones from Portugal and from Spain. And this is going to be a 7-year-old whiskey with roughly 6 months to a year of that 7 years being in a sherry barrel.
I really liked it, but if I was going to drink it, every week or every few days, I would do the New York Rye cask. The sherry cask is like a dessert.
Yeah, and I always say if any of you have chocolate anywhere nearby, I recommend grabbing a piece and trying it with the sherry. This is there he is. Yeah, perfect. Nice. Kate, way to go. You're my kind of person. This is the best way I think to experience the sherry cask is with a little bit of chocolate. Nice. This is definitely the way to do it. It's such a good dessert whiskey. It's really also good with dark meats. If you guys ever do any duck, pork, really good. The minted chocolate might be a little interesting, but
Is this first or second fill? I'm so sorry. Did you say?
this is mostly first fill. I believe they do occasionally second fill, but mostly first fill. And we are going to be doing some releases. The next couple of sherry releases are going to be in PX.
I was gonna say, you said it's predominantly Oloroso. What other sherries are you playing with?
Mostly PX will be the next. It's been Oloroso up to basically this point, and now that we have a big old stack of PX barrels that they got, so that'll be one of the next sherries. Ooh,
I've got
Midwinter's Night Stram on this. Nice.
I've got kind of dark chocolate here, and I don't think it pairs well with this dark chocolate. What's
it bring out for you? Is it a little too spicy?
No, they just clash with each other a little too much. I mean, at first they seem like they're good together, and then boom, they clash. So I think slightly less, but so this is 70%, but it kind of tastes like 80 or 85%. Okay. So I think something a little milkier would go better with the sherry.
My favorite thing is a chocolate cake. That's my
nice, I bet you that would be great.
Cake. That's my way.
That's because I have 72%, and I think it's a great combination.
Yeah, but like I said, I think this tastes darker. This even though it's 70, it kind of tastes like something much higher. Yeah.
And again, that's one of the beauties of this is everyone's palate's a little different, right? So You never
I
know.
like things that are bitter because I'm bitter, so it's okay.
Yeah, bitter food and being a little bitter, they go well together.
I'm
You
not
gotta-
bitter. I don't know what you're talking about.
You had to
I would
see the
never
thumbs
call
up
you
from the
bitter.
lady
Never.
who made her.
I'm bitter. I'm angry and bitter. Ask Lori, she'll tell you.
Cool. The one other event I'll tell you guys about. We do really 2 big events a year. Snowflake is one of them. Cast Thief is the other. My glass, which you probably won't be able to see, but it's one of the glasses from Cast Thief, actually. All those weird finishing barrels I was talking about, we take 6 to 7 of them, depending if you're in the general or the VIP session. We take 6 to 7 of them. We spread them out throughout the distillery, and we basically give you a book. We call it the passport. That's basically has a description of everything. You can take your notes, go through, and you go and taste 7 barrels. We thief straight out of the barrel into your glass. And so you taste 6 or 7 barrels at cast strength straight out of the barrel. They're all very unique. A lot of those barrels actually end up in Snowflake eventually. That is a really fun event. And that's going to be somewhere between May and July this year. So if you guys want a fun time to come out to Stranahan's and fly here, that's the time to do it. That is one of my favorite events of the year. It's a great time. You definitely have to Uber there because 7 cast strength whiskeys in 3 hours is a lot, but it's a great time. And that's where we, like I mentioned, the gin barrel, different wine barrels, the barrel we did with Laws, we called that Between Friends. That all happens at Cast Thief, and that's a really fun time if you guys want to come out here. Amanda, I'm glad you also, in the interest of science, tried milk chocolate.
And I'm just doing it for you people.
Someone has to, right?
It's good with the milk chocolate, but I'm going to say I like it with the dark chocolate better.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
I don't
It
have
works
anything
with
in the
a-
middle.
I'm telling you, chocolate cake is the way.
I pulled out a different dark chocolate and it works with that very well.
Oh, nice. So maybe,
Yeah.
this was maybe that bar of chocolate you had. Just a weird one.
Who's got chocolate cake? Come on, somebody own up to it. Somebody's got to be
Someone
sitting
has
there
to
eating
have
chocolate cake.
I know, I should-
You still got any cookies, Vadim?
Ooh, Jason's got a chocolate mousse cake in the fridge. Go pull that out. Test.
Amanda, it's cute that you think those cookies made it past like day 1. They usually don't make it to dessert the day you bring them, so.
I don't know if you hid one. It's a surprise for later.
I've learned my
Vadim,
lesson.
what was our poll result?
Yeah, let's see it. All right, I'm gonna finish the poll. I think just about everyone voted. Jason, did you vote for your favorite?
I did, yeah.
All right, let's see if you skewed the results. All right, you want to take a guess of what the group's favorite expression was?
Let's see. I'm gonna say Mountain Angel.
Okay.
I have a second guess, but we'll
What's
start
your
with that
second
one.
guess?
New York Ricecast.
Interesting. Well, the answer is 45% voted New York Ricecast.
Ah,
And second place was Mountain Angel with 30%.
okay.
Oh.
Okay.
There you go.
Ooh, and someone likes original. Nice.
Yeah,
That's
Rich
actually
does well.
me, and that is very, for the few on here that I've done quite a few tasting with, very outside of my signature. I am very much an in-your-face, heavy into peat, heavy into wine finish, and yet for American single malts, the original to me just like it hit everything that I expect out of an American single malt, and some of the others got a little. I don't know. It was they were the flavors were wrestling with each other a couple times, I felt, and that one really, as a signature whiskey, stood out to me. And honestly, again, I love high proof stuff, and the Blue Peak was probably my second favorite, just because the kind of the pure spirit, the younger age, and everything, like it really came out for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, our original has, they've been doing original for a long time, and that is a nailed down pat recipe. That product is almost the same every single time, and it's such a great OG to have, right? It's just such a great base product that sometimes it can be a little hard because like competing with it's not easy. And
that's the one you guys do barrel picks of, right?
Sort of. I mean, yes and no. This is one of our single barrels. They look very similar.
They
But
just take the
our
yellow
single
label,
barrels-
but it's different.
Yeah, because you remember original is going to be a marriage of 4, 5, 6, and 7 year. Basically, 4, 5, 6, and 7. When you pick a single barrel, you pick one of those years. Right now, we're going through 4-year barrels. Interesting. So I'm the one that does all the barrel picks here. So if you guys ever do a barrel pick, you're going to come hang out with me, which is going to be awesome. But right now we're going through some 4.5-year-old barrels for our barrel picks. Those are some of the best single barrels I've had out of Stranahan's. Like 4-year mark for whatever reason for us is just phenomenal. It's fruity, it's complex. When you get into 5 and 6, you start getting kind of a weird, like, it's in its teenage years. It's trying to fight you a little bit. It's just angry. And then you get into 7 and it's incredible again. But 5 and 6, like they're good. They're just the flavors are a little bit all over the place. But then 4 and 7 is phenomenal. So yeah, I really like our 4s. This is just I have a random single barrel from some pub. This is 4 years, 7 months at 111. That's a really low one. Our average single barrels are coming out around 118.
If you said it earlier and I missed it, I apologize, but have you guys done anything with peat, or do you have any plans to?
We've done one peated experimental, which was really interesting. I think we actually got a barrel from, I want to say it was Lefroy, and we didn't use peated barley or anything, so we just used that peated barrel, and we put our whiskey in there for like 3 years. Came out pretty peaty. Lefroy is a good one if you're going to use the barrel for that. That's a good barrel to use. But I'm not the biggest peat person. I'm getting there. I'm learning. So that one was a little rough for me, but it was a lot of people's favorites, especially if they love peat. That was a good one because you get all the Stranahan's complexity and then just this extra smoky, spicy character of peat on top of that. So they have done it. I don't think they'll ever do any full releases of anything peated, but that's one of the things you might find at Cat Thief, or they blended that peat barrel into Snowflake, like a little 5% was in there. Not enough to actually taste peat, but there's a little something spicy, smoky at the end. Yeah, they play with peat barrels occasionally.
So I was curious, going back to your single barrels, you guys do single barrels in both like the normal strength and the cask strength?
So we don't do any single barrels at 94 proof. Basically we do the true single barrel program. So if you come get a barrel from us, you come to Stranahan's ideally. If you can't come, we send you samples. You pick your barrel, we put your name on that barrel, and then we just take that barrel, run through the filter to get the char out of it. Not chill filter, just filtering. Just running through a micron filter, get the char out, and then we bottle that whole barrel for you. We send you the entire barrel. We also send you the barrel when it's empty. And we put your name on the bottle as well. So on this label, which I'm sorry you probably can't see, but we put your name right here, and it tells you all the details, how old it is, proof, all that stuff. So each single barrel is unique, and it's whatever proof it comes out at. So right now they're coming out around like the 114 range in that 4 years. But there's some that I've seen barrels in the 130s. I've seen most of them hover around the like I said, the 118 to 120.
Okay, so this is the way to get a cask strength bottling of Stranahan's is any of the single barrels.
Yeah, so if you want a cask strength one, and you can't come to the distillery, get a store pick from somebody wherever you in California. I'm sure there are stores out there that have done a barrel pick with us. That's just they picked that barrel from samples we sent them, and that's going to be straight cast strength, not altered in any way. No water added at all. We just, whatever they picked, that's what we sent.
How
So-
was the
so-
plump, sorry, how was the plump jack pick?
That was before my time, I think. So I got this role. I've been doing the single barrels for the last 5 months. Before that, I was working at the distillery doing other stuff. And now I work at the distillery doing other stuff. So now I do the single barrel stuff mostly over there and private tours and all that. So I didn't know that pick in particular, but if you told me some details about it, I could probably tell you.
I don't know. I might just have to go and buy the bottle tomorrow.
You might have to. I haven't had a bad single barrel from us. There are some that are just a little more angry than others, but you know, there are a lot of people that really like angry single barrels. If I'm talking to you people that like 140 proof bourbons. Not
You know, I
don't hate
think
it all.
plump jack would be a good compliment to Stranahan single malt.
I haven't had that, but I'm sure it would be.
So why not have a core cast strength add-on?
So we do.
You do.
But again, it's only at the distillery.
Okay.
So the distillery does a staff pick. Bye, Mickey. Thank you. Good seeing you. We do one. It is just it's a in distillery only. So the staff will actually pick their favorite single barrel, and then they'll bottle that. We'll run through it at the distillery, and then they'll pick another one, run through it, pick another one, run through it. So there's always at the distillery, there's always a single barrel release at cask strength. It just that doesn't get shipped out.
But it's not, you don't have like a cast strength version of the original.
No,
No, it's any cast strength expression is going to be a single cask.
it's going to be a single cask, and it's also going to be, or it's going to be an experimental that is, and those, the experimentals are interesting. Those are also only at distillery only, but they're 375s, and it's usually something we only have one barrel of, or like maybe 1 or 2 barrels of that we'll do a kind of weird one-off release. And yeah, those can be all over the place because that for those, it's basically wherever the master distiller at the time wants it to be. So if he likes it at 110, it'll be at 110. If he likes it at 100, he'll do it at 100. If he likes it at 94, he'll do it at 94. Those are fun.
So who's your new master distiller?
We don't have one at the moment. Okay. So good question. Yeah. So if you guys don't know, our old head distiller was Owen Martin. He got an incredible offer from Angel's Envy, and so he's now Angel's Envy's master distiller, which I'm very happy for him. He's the guy that trained me, and I have nothing but good things to say about him. He's an amazing man, amazing distiller too. So we are currently in the process of finding a new master distiller. The good news for us is our team is really, really good. We have a lot of people that have been there for quite a long time and really can run the show without a master distiller. And so that's what they've been doing. The last Snowflake was kind of collaborative marriage between the team. Everyone did everything that way and, you know, made the decisions there. Cast Thief will probably have our new master blender in by then, but it's Cast Thief will probably already be done. So that'll again probably be a collaborative effort of what barrels are we using. I know they're already working on that. So it's all collaborative. They all, you know, there's 4 or 5 guys that have been there for a long time that have all worked together, and they're all just kind of putting their heads together and making sure everything runs the way it should.
Jason, I don't want to give you a bigger head than you already have, but how much is the New York rye cask?
How much is it?
Yeah.
It's
really good.
70 bucks if you come to the distillery. 70 plus tax.
It sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
It is, yeah.
You did a great job.
70 bucks. Glad you like it. It's one of my favorites too. Definitely one of my favorites as well. I hope it sticks around. I know we have more barrels in the back, so it's a favorite of mine. I'm hoping one day they'll let us do single barrel picks of some of our like random barrels. So I'll tell you what, the rye cask at like 105 proof was incredible. It came out of the barrels at 122, and I started just kind of cutting it down and playing with it. And at 105, it's so good, so good. You get a little more of that rye character on it, and I loved it. But again, not my call. So yeah, I'm excited to see that come out more.
You should let people do the cowboy thing and just come with some empty bottles and fill them up at cask strength. You know, bring in empty Stranahans.
So
Cowboy night.
And sadly, we're recording this, but funny enough, one of the fun things is I can just go to the distillery and just, this is the cask strength version of the next Diamond Peak. Since they won't release it, I just take some. It's yeah.
Michael, I like that though. A cowboy night at Stranahan's.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be your other annual event. Then you have 3. Yeah, there you go.
But you're only allowed to take a 375 or like a 200 ml bottle. So you have to decide. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you get.
You can take 200 ml bottle.
You can't walk out with a barrel. You only get to fill 200 ml. Good luck.
So the beauty is, at Cascade, you can buy a 375 of each of the barrels. So you can buy all seven if you want to. But yeah, it'd be cool if we could just randomly like walk around the distillery and let you just go, I want that barrel, and just pull some out of there. That'd be great. That'd be fun.
It's the perks of the job, though, for you.
Yeah, it's one of the cool things. I can just talk to the head guy there and just say, hey, can I take some of that? Sure. Cool. Don't tell him I said that, but yeah.
That's the real reason why everything has to be proofed down at the distillery before it comes out. So much gets taken out from the Jason share.
Yeah, luckily for them, I've only taken those little tiny flasks when I do, but yeah, it's a good place. Yeah, I love that place.
They call it the Jason share.
The Jason share. It's no longer Angel share, it's just Jason share.
Jason share. I like that.
You guys have any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Did Owen use the Glencairn topper I gave him when I was there? I remember he was really excited about it.
I haven't seen that, so I'm assuming he just took it home.
Essentially, when I gave it to him, he was so excited. He was like, we have a lot of distillers here and we're all a team, but now I can be the king distiller. I can be the head.
He's a huge nerd. He's awesome. He's a D&D player. Like, yeah. So I'm not surprised he loved that.
Awesome.
I said I wasn't going to drink, and then we got to the last two.
A little bit is good for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I'm sure they did. Thank you for spending the evening with us. As always, we're not kicking anybody out. We're going to hit stop on the recording and just hang out and not record it. So thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, guys.